usually when we think about time, we treat it like this rigid, unbending ruler.
Yeah. Like 60 seconds make a minute, and that's that.
Exactly. It's objective, it's measurable. You look at a clock and, well, there it is. But then you actually experience time, and suddenly that ruler warps.
Oh, absolutely. It warps completely.
You sit in a sterile waiting room, or, I don't know, you stare at the microwave waiting for your food to heat up, and that single minute just stretches out into what feels like an absolute eternity.
Yeah, the clock says one thing, but human consciousness dictates something entirely different. Time is wildly elastic, depending on the state of your mind. I mean, you spend an evening with someone you love, or you fall into a deep flow state while working on a passion project, and hours vanish in what feels like seconds.
So true. Well, today we're looking at a text that claims this elasticity of time can be stretched to, like, terrifying extremes.
Oh, yeah.
Where a single second can feel like an agonizing 50 years. Welcome to today's deep dive. We are wading into the teachings of Guru Amar Das Ji, the third Sikh guru.
It's an incredible text.
It really is. And the specific source material we are diving into is a composition set to Rag Sorat'h. So our mission for today's deep dive is to explore the concept of spiritual rebirth outlined in this text.
Right.
Because it reads less like a set of religious rules and more like, I don't know, a high-definition roadmap of the human mind.
It's a fascinating document primarily because it merges deep philosophical instruction with a very specific physiological and emotional experience.
Right.
You mentioned it's set to Rag Sorat'h. That is a critical piece of context here.
Oh, so?
Well, in Indian classical music, a rag isn't just a melody or a tune. It is a precise musical framework designed to evoke a highly specific emotional state in the listener.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Rag Sorat'h historically is often used to evoke a profound sense of longing, followed by deep, soothing peace.
Okay, so it's setting the stage.
Exactly. So before you even process the words of the guru, the music itself is preparing the brain, lowering the defenses of the logical mind, and forcing you to feel the weight of the concepts.
It's essentially hacking the emotional center of the brain before delivering the message.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
And the message hits hard immediately. I mean, to understand the ultimate goal of the spiritual journey described here, we first have to look at the baseline state of someone who has actually achieved it.
Right, that state of intense, unwavering connection to the divine.
Yeah. The guru opens by stating, and I'm quoting here, "Dear beloved Lord, I praise you continually, as long as there is the breath within my body."
Beautiful.
But then comes the line that just shatters our normal perception of reality. The text says, "If I were to forget you for a moment, even for an instant, O Lord Master, it would be like 50 years for me."
Just letting the sheer mathematics of that sink in changes the entire context of the text.
It really does.
I mean, 50 years packed into a single instant of forgetfulness.
It is massive time dilation. And honestly, it sounds exhausting. When I read that, my first thought was about how we experience minor disconnections today. You're in the middle of a great conversation, your phone buzzes, you look away for a second, and the magic of the moment is just gone.
Oh, yeah, the bubble pops.
Exactly. But this text takes that tiny friction and amplifies it to a cosmic scale. So I have to ask, is this line essentially saying that disconnection from the divine actually causes a type of psychological agony that warps time itself?
It is, yeah. But we need to understand the mechanism behind why it warps time.
Okay.
For an enlightened mind, the baseline is perfect alignment with the divine. It's a state of ultimate flow, complete harmony, and absolute presence.
Just totally in the zone.
Right. When you are entirely present, time essentially ceases to exist. You are just in the now. So any break in that connection, even for a split second, pulls the mind out of the eternal present and drops it violently back into the ego.
Oof.
Yeah, back into the anxieties of the past and future. The shock of that transition is agonizing.
So it's not a punishment for forgetting. It's the natural consequence of falling out of flow.
Precisely. Think of it as a biological necessity rather than like a philosophical failing.
Interesting.
Spiritual mindfulness here isn't framed as a chore or some ritual you have to perform. It is framed as a very oxygen of the soul.
Ooh, I like that analogy.
Right. If you are held underwater, you don't rationally think, it is a shame I am currently lacking oxygen.
No, you panic.
Exactly. Every cell in your body screams in panic. A few seconds without air feels like an eternity of suffering. The guru is describing a state where the spiritual self is so perfectly attuned that forgetting the divine feels like suffocation.
Wow.
Without that connection, a mere second stretches out into 50 years of agonizing, empty time.
That drastically reframes how we view spiritual practice. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not about checking a box on a Sunday. It's about keeping the internal self alive.
Yes.
But, okay, if a single moment of disconnection is that painful, how does one even achieve that level of profound connection in the first place?
Well, the text doesn't leave us hanging there.
Right? It introduces the mechanism for this transformation, the sabadh, which translates to the guru's word or divine wisdom.
Yeah, the sabadh is the active catalyst in this roadmap. It is the tool used to bridge the gap between the mundane, scattered mind and that state of eternal, oxygen-rich flow.
The text describes the transformation brought on by the sabadh, and the self-awareness is striking. It says, "I was always such a fool and an idiot, but now, through the word of the guru's sabadh, my mind is enlightened."
A very relatable starting point.
Super relatable. But then it introduces a concept that frankly sounds terrifying.
Uh-oh.
It says, "I have died in the word of the sabadh, and through the sabadh I am dead while yet alive. Through the sabadh my mind and body have been purified."
Ah, yes.
Wait, dead while yet alive?
Yeah.
That sounds incredibly grim. I mean, is this asking us to completely wipe our personalities blank, like formatting a hard drive?
Yeah, it is a massive stumbling block for a lot of people when they encounter mystical texts.
I can see why.
When we hear the word death, our modern minds immediately associate it with the physical end of life, or a sort of lobotomized state where you lose everything that makes you unique.
Right. You become a robot.
Exactly. But the phrase dead while yet alive is pointing to a highly specific psychological event, the death of the ego.
Okay, but how does engaging with a word or divine wisdom actually kill the ego? What is the actual mechanism there?
To understand the mechanism, it helps to look at it through the lens of modern psychology. Think of the ego as your brain's default mode network.
Okay.
When you aren't focused on a specific task, your brain defaults to a relentless stream of self-referential thoughts, like, what do people think of me? Or what am I going to eat later?
Well, why did I say that embarrassing thing 5 years ago?
Yes, exactly. It is a constant, exhausting noise machine that places you at the absolute center of the universe.
It's the voice that never shuts up.
Never. And that voice filters your entire reality. So to die in the word of the sabadh means using the divine wisdom as an anchor to permanently interrupt that default mode network.
Oh, I see.
The sabadh forces the mind to focus outward on the infinite rather than inward on the anxious, separate self. You aren't wiping your personality blank. You are stepping out of a suffocating virtual reality headset that you've been wearing your entire life.
That's a wild image, taking off the headset.
Right. The person taking off the headset is still alive, still has a sense of humor, still has preferences. But the illusion that the simulation was the only reality that isolated, ego-driven existence is entirely dead.
So it's less about destroying yourself and more about removing the static that prevents you from hearing the actual broadcast.
That is the exact purification the text mentions. When the endless, self-centered noise of the ego dies, the mind and body are purified, making space for the Lord to, as the text says, come to dwell within my mind.
Because you can't fill a space that's already full.
Right. You cannot fill a space that is already overflowing with your own anxieties and self-importance.
Okay, but if shedding the ego brings this profound sense of peace and ends those agonizing 50-year stretches of disconnection, why is it so rare?
That's the big question.
I mean, why do we fight so incredibly hard to hold on to our anxieties and our self-importance?
Well, the text actually addresses this resistance directly.
It does. And
Wow.
the imagery it uses takes a sudden, very dark turn to describe those who reject this wisdom.
Yeah, the contrast is necessary here. The guru is holding up a mirror to the default state of humanity, and it pulls no punches.
Seriously, it describes people who do not know the sabadh as blind and deaf. It asks, why did they even bother to come into the world?
Ouch.
Yeah. It says they fail to obtain the subtle essence of the divine, they waste their lives, and they are reincarnated over and over again. And then there was this deeply visceral metaphor.
Oh, the maggots.
Yes, it compares these self-willed man-mucks, the foolish and the idiotic, to maggots in manure who just rot away in it.
It is a jarring shift in tone, especially following the beautiful poetry about the breath of life. But we have to understand the term manmuk.
What does it mean literally?
It translates to someone who is self-willed or facing toward their own mind, as opposed to facing toward the divine wisdom. The manmuk is entirely driven by that default mode network we just talked about.
Maggots in manure is such an aggressive wake-up call, though.
It is.
It made me think about how this plays out today. To me, the man muck isn't necessarily someone intentionally evil. It's more like someone wearing industrial noise-canceling headphones, and inside the headphones, it's just blasting chaotic heavy metal at maximum volume.
I love that analogy.
Right. And they're standing in a magnificent concert hall where a beautiful, quiet symphony is playing. But because of their headphones, they are functionally blind and deaf to the symphony. They only know the heavy metal.
The headphones analogy gets right to the core of the tragedy. It explains why the man muck is trapped.
Yeah.
The text notes that they fail to obtain the subtle essence of the Lord's elixir. The divine reality is subtle. It requires a quiet, attuned mind to perceive it.
And the ego is anything but quiet.
Exactly. The ego is loud, demanding, and gross in the sense of being heavy and material. It's the manure.
Yes, it's the manure. The harshness of the metaphor isn't a petty insult. It's an accurate observation of a purely base, material existence. The man muck only listens to their own stubborn mind.
Right.
Because of this, their perception is entirely limited to what they can physically consume, control, or conquer. They are obsessed with the manure-building empires out of it, defending their little pile of it, entirely consumed by the temporary and the mundane.
And we see this everywhere today. I mean, it's the person obsessively doom-scrolling, terrified of the news cycle.
Yeah.
It's the absolute obsession with career metrics or getting into vicious arguments in comment sections to defend some tiny territory of personal opinion. We are vigorously defending our piles of manure, completely unaware of the concert hall we are standing in.
And the ultimate tragedy of the man muck is the consequence of this narrowed perception. The text explicitly states they are reincarnated over and over again.
Because they're stuck. Right, because they cannot perceive anything beyond the gross material reality. They are bound to it. They repeat the same meaningless struggles, the same anxieties, the same ego-driven conflicts. They waste the precious opportunity of human consciousness because they refuse to take off the heavy metal headphones.
So we have this incredible stark contrast. On one side, the self-willed man muck, trapped in a tragic, deafening cycle of their own making.
Yep.
On the other side, the sabadh, offering an anchor to quiet the mind, kill the ego, and achieve a timeless connection to the divine. Looking at the mechanics of this roadmap, the logical conclusion for you or me seems pretty straightforward.
Oh, how so?
Well, we just need to actively choose the sabadh, do the hard work of meditating, silence our internal noise, and secure our own enlightenment. Problem solved.
But if we trace this journey to its very end, that's where the text introduces its most profound and perhaps most difficult paradox.
Exactly. Just when you think you've figured out the formula, the guru delivers a massive final twist about who is actually in control of this entire process.
It's a huge pivot.
The concluding verses state, "The Lord himself creates us, watches over us, and places us on the path." And that doubles down. It says, no one can erase that which is preordained. Whatever the Creator wills comes to pass. And ultimately, you yourself bestow understanding.
It entirely subverts the hero's journey we are so used to expecting.
I have to ask the question that any modern goal-oriented listener is thinking right now.
Go for it.
If everything is preordained by the Creator, if understanding is just a gift that the divine bestows entirely at will, why do anything? Doesn't this completely negate the whole idea of actively trying to engage with the sabadh?
That's a fair question.
Right. I mean, if I am placed on the path, great. If I'm destined to be a maggot in the manure, well, that's preordained. It sounds like absolute fatalism.
It is the classic tension between free will and divine grace. And it is entirely intentional.
Intentional.
Yes. The text isn't advocating for passive fatalism. It is setting a highly sophisticated trap for the final remnants of the ego.
A trap for the ego. Walk me through how that works.
Okay, let's go back to the idea of the man muck, the self-willed mind. The core feature of the ego is that it loves achievement. It survives on the feeling of agency and ownership.
Sure.
So if you go through this rigorous spiritual process, if you meditate for hours, if you actively engage with the sabadh, and finally quiet your mind to achieve a state of enlightenment, what is the ego's natural, immediate reaction?
Oh, it wants to take the credit.
Exactly.
It wants to say, look at what I achieved. Look how disciplined and spiritual I am.
You nailed it. The ego simply shapeshifts. It drops the heavy metal headphones and puts on a monk's robe.
Wow.
It becomes a spiritual ego, which is often even harder to dislodge because it looks so holy.
Yeah.
If you believe that you earned your enlightenment through your own sheer will, your ego isn't dead at all. You are still a man muck. You are still entirely self-willed.
So this final realization that it's all preordained and bestowed as a gift is the final boss battle.
It is the only realization capable of completely breaking the illusion of separation. Acknowledging that the divine places us on the path is an act of ultimate, absolute humility.
I see.
The text mentions the name, which translates to the divine name, or the vibrating presence of the divine. It says that this name, abiding deep within the mind, is a gift. The realization that frees the soul is understanding that there is no other at all.
Meaning there is no separate you that achieved anything.
Right. There is only the divine acting through you. You still have to do the work. You still have to listen to the Shabbat and quiet the mind, but you must completely surrender the results and the credit.
That's tough.
It is. You are participating in the process, but the ultimate liberation is a realization of grace, not a trophy you won. If you hold on to the ownership of your spiritual victory, you are right back in the manure.
It demands total surrender. The effort is required, but the attachment to the outcome has to be entirely let go. That is a remarkably delicate psychological balance to strike.
It really is, and that is why it requires a lifetime of practice, and why the text serves as a constant roadmap to pull the mind back when it strays.
Let's pull back and look at the incredible ground we've covered in just these few stanzas of text.
I've covered a lot.
We started with the sheer intensity of the awakened state, to the realization that a perfectly attuned mind experiences a single moment of disconnection as 50 years of agonizing suffocation.
Right.
We explored the mechanism for restoring that connection, the Sabadh, which acts as an anchor to quiet the relentless noise of the ego, requiring us to be dead while yet alive.
We also confronted the stark reality of the alternative, the tragedy of the self-willed manmak wandering blind and deaf, consumed by the material manure because their internal noise prevents them from tasting the subtle essence of the divine reality.
And finally, we arrived at the ultimate paradox of grace. Accepting that true liberation requires us to do the work, but to utterly surrender the belief that our own ego-driven striving is what saves us.
Yep.
It's a text that forces you to examine your own daily life. It challenges you to look at where you might be acting like a manmuck, fiercely defending your tiny territory in the comment sections, obsessed with your own will and what it might physically feel like to take off the heavy metal headphones and allow yourself to be guided by something quieter, but infinitely larger.
It is not a text you can merely read and categorize as history. It demands an internal audit.
Absolutely. Well, to leave you, the listener, with one last thread to pull on from today's deep dive, I want to pass it over for a final thought.
We began by discussing the profound elasticity of time, how a fully awakened mind feels an instant of separation from the divine as 50 agonizing years.
Right.
If that is the baseline reality of someone who is truly awake, it raises a powerful question for you to ponder as you go about the rest of your day. If you were to measure your life not by the chronological years you've survived on this planet, but strictly by the cumulative moments you were truly, consciously connected to something greater than your own ego, how old are you really?